3, 2, 1, liftoff.
Cannabinoid Connect, the nation's most diverse cannabis-related podcast.
Mike, Alex, welcome to the podcast. Mike, welcome back.
Hey, man. Good to see you, brother. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I got to tell you, and before we started recording, I'm singing praises for the Dablicator because when I initially tried it, what was it, Mike? We talked, was it a year ago or 2 years ago now?
Yeah, I think maybe 2 years ago. Mark might know. And it was like right as we launched the program. Dude, it might have been, I think it was late 2020 or early 2021.
It was right when I first started the podcast. So I probably like 60 episodes deep and got a chance to try the product, man. And I got to tell you, first off, firsthand experiencing it, it was amazing. For those that don't really understand what the Dablicator is, and of course we'll get into it, and I apologize if I butcher this, but it's basically like a pen where you're pushing, the bottom part to extract the oil to where you can coat any type of product you want, right? Whether it's a bowl that has flour, or if you want to, put some resin in a pre-roll. I mean, it's just very easy access to get that oil out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It basically, the way we think about it, well, the tagline kind of is the most versatile, easiest, most versatile way to experience cannabis. And I'd probably just butcher that, Alex. But it's basically, it's got a ton of applications, but some of which we didn't even think about. But it's fully activated oil that our partners put in it. And you twist and plunge. And like you said, you can put it on anything. You can put it on top of a bowl. You can make an infused joint. You can dab directly with it because it's got some like a heat resistant tip. Interestingly enough, one of the biggest things we're finding is people are using it to mix into food and make like infused guacamole and help with their infused dinners. Eat it directly. It's essentially 1,000 milligram edible, which wasn't designed to be that. So it's this really interesting format to experience cannabis in a lot of different ways.
Right.
It's got a lot of opportunity there with just opening up to more consumers. Like everyone is going to find a use for cannabis oil if they're using it out of the Dablicator oil applicator, just because of how easy it is to use. The dosing is really great. It's super repeatable. And it just makes it an excellent option for anyone who's trying to add cannabis oil or just use cannabis oil in a more versatile way.
Yeah, no, I totally got that. And, the response that I got from my Instagram story and posting it, it's like, if you're not in a state where it's legal or if you can't get access to the Dablicator, it's like, well, what is that thing? Right. Like what that's so cool. So I got a lot of interest and just kind of curiosity around it. And so again, thank you, for allowing me to try that. It was an amazing experience, man. And I heard that, y'all have really skyrocketed since that conversation 2 years ago, right? You're surpassing $100 million in revenue. So talk to me about, how far y'all have come and what's been going on.
Well, in fairness, our company has not generated $100 million in revenue. What we've done is sold enough products into and then sold through at retail. It's generated $100 million at retail for our partners. Right. So the average price point of a Dablicator at retail is $50, $60, $70. And it's almost all new revenue for them. So we've gone in and, created the platform. We bring their brand and it's their brand, their oil. We work with them. Alex's team works on a whole sell-through program. And because of all of that, consumers have essentially purchased over $100 million of this thing.
I see.
Which is incredible, man. Like
it's amazing.
When we talked, God, like two years ago, it was an idea, right? We're like, you know what, man, I think this could be cool. I think, we've had a couple of folks that have reached out to us. 710 Labs, for example, was one of the first ones. And I said, I was working at Jetty with my partners over there. And I said, guys, let me take this thing because I think it might have some legs as a platform. kind of like the PAX platform, but even more focused on our partners' brand and our partners, instead of on us.
Right.
And so we went to market and just started sort of socializing what this was. It was picking up steam. We were getting inquiries, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, we went from like one partner with 710 Labs, maybe two, because Jetty was one of them, 42 brand partners in 26 markets right now, over $100 million in retail revenue, and as much as a 60% larger basket size for partners. Kind of cool. Like,
absolutely
pretty freaking incredible when you think about it. 2 years ago, and you and I were talking, I was like, I think we could do something with this. I think it might be a white space. And it's kind of shown up as that. And it's really fun. And it's really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fun to hear, like, kind of where you started 2 years ago, and just to see how much success and how much growth y'all have experienced in that short time frame. It's obviously something that's unique and highly sought after because of all the different applications, right? And I know that Alex, you can probably speak to the applications and so tell me a little bit about, from the marketing perspective, it's got to be pretty easy to market, right? Because it's so differentiated.
I mean, I think it's both easy, but like everything in cannabis, education is absolutely key. Cannabis consumers are always looking for something new, something interesting, but you also got everyone who loves to stick to the tried and true methods. And I think that they see Dablicator oil applicator and they say, that's something that's new and kind of cool and unique. Let me try that. But they realize, it's for dabs. That checks out. But then, I can just eat this directly. Oh, that's interesting. Now there's a new use case. Oh, I can add this into my food, into my beverages, put it on top. In fact, I've seen plenty of folks who are just taking two medicated gummies, putting a nice blob of oil from Dablicator on there, and then putting them together like a little Oreo sandwich, which is taking people to the moon, and I respect that.
That sounds like good Instagram content right there. Like, I could just see a gummy bear sandwich Dablicator video,
Exactly. Even adding it to flour. I think, I've seen some very cool designs, adding that oil on the outside of a pre-roll, wrapping it around, dipping it in keef. I mean, I think people making their own infused pre-rolls as well is something that's great. And that's something that's really interesting across the markets, across the nation, really, where you have some markets that don't have infused pre-rolls as a sold product category. Now consumers and patients there can make their own and have that same experience that the rest of us get to have.
Right. Yeah. And in my perspective, it's like, I'm in Texas where everything's illegal, but when I do get my hands on flower, it gave me the opportunity to really enhance the experience, right? Like, there's sometimes maybe where I didn't want to put that on because it might be a little too intense or it heightened, but in other cases it was a long day, I'm tired, and I want to add that little Dablicator to the flower to get that extra oomph, So Mike, let's kind of rehash what we initially talked about 2 years ago, right? And let's kind of bring the audience up to speed in terms of, like, where did this first of a kind cannabis experience come about? Like, where did you really have the idea,
Well, Jetty Extracts is one of the larger extracts and cannabis brands in California. The founders are just amazing people and very creative. And they invented this product, I'd say 2014, 2015, as a Jetty product, really to deliver a better dabbing experience, but also as an edible product, because they had a good friend of theirs with cancer. They were trying to get him, the only thing he could really take to get his appetite and his nausea sort of under control was eating oil instead of couldn't smoke it. So they had this product, and they iterated on it, got a patent on it. And that was it. It was sort of a Jetty product for years. You'd walk into a store in LA with your Jetty hat on, and they'd be like, "Jetty, man, I love your Dablicator." And it was cool. So kind of a bit of a cult product, not a huge item. And it was by design, it also was limiting because it was a thing. It was this cool thing in a store. It wasn't a category. It wasn't anything that you come in and see as its own section. So it was cool, and it did well. It was a small part of Jetty's portfolio. And around 2019, I started noticing we were getting inquiries. Hey, could we buy 1,000 of these things with our logo on it? Could we, we think this is really cool. And we're like, yeah, you can buy it. And we just sell them. And actually an admin person managed the revenue. And all of a sudden I started seeing the revenue going. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? We all of a sudden got this really big order from one of the MSOs, Parallel. And I said, wait a second, there might be something here. This is right before, before COVID hit. And I asked my partners, I said, Jetty, and I said, look, I think there's something here. Let me see. Things are pretty stable with Jetty. I'm going to go see if there's a opportunity here. And literally started working on this little project, kind of a skunk works in my garage. Had the applicator, the patents, everything was dialed, but we just put together what we thought was a platform, an offering, and started contacting major brands, regional brands, smaller guys, and said, hey, you guys need incremental revenue. We think this might be it. You need a turnkey solution as far as innovation and custom branding, and this is it. And it grew from there. 1, 2, 3, 6, 12 partners kept coming on board saying, this is great. We have extra distillate. We'll put it in this. Alex is a little bit modest because one of the things he didn't speak to is, I'd say half of the reason this thing has been so successful is the retail marketing and education program that his team's put together. So once you get your logo on this and your oil in it, he's got a whole team meaning small. We're like 6 people in the whole company. But it's really driving all these incredible marketing assets into the retailer and making sure they use them and have turnkey experience so that, overnight you've got a whole digital assets library available to you, social media template. So the partners that have come on board are like, okay, this is cool. And they're like, holy crap, you're doing all this for us as well. And it's like a flywheel. It just started working on itself where, all right, cool and innovative, neat idea. Whoa, bud tenders love it. Whoa, you guys are giving me all these assets. Wow, you've got an online bud tender education program. Wow, now I'm seeing 2 or 3 brands in a store. And it's really just grown like that. And the end of the day, it's a good product. The key, honestly, is the oil and the brand partners. We're sort of the intel inside. So that's what happened. I mean, it grew from when we talked, I think maybe we did a $50,000 in revenue or sold, who knows, like 20,000 units or something. Now we're up over 2 million units sold in over the last 3 years. Wow. And it's honestly, the velocity is just picking up. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, exciting and fascinating. And I say fascinating because you said something that really stuck with me, and that's basically creating your own category, right? This is completely new for the industry. And to your point about Alex, in his job, Alex, you're marketing a completely new category, which involves education, right? From every level, right? Consumer education, bud tender, retail education. I mean, even industry-wide education that this is even available. This is a thing, right? So I would imagine there was a lot of collaboration between both of you to really come up with that go-to-market plan, because this is a blank canvas, essentially.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that we worked really closely together. My experience in cannabis has been on the brand manager side across MSOs, smaller single state brands. I understood what the pain points are, and I understand what the pain points are for a brand manager in this industry. It's not enough resources and way too much work. And I think where we really identified some innovation in our process and in our model is providing those solutions across the board, not just being a hardware company, but really giving an entire experience to a partner so that they know that when they purchase this, when they get their brand on it, when they fill it with their great oil, that they then have the support from us to help them sell it in and sell it through, educating consumers, bud tenders, everyone about the versatility of this tool and bringing that cannabis oil and that brand to a much larger consumer. I I mean, in some essence, the direct oil application category did exist, but it was all syringes. And that's a small segment of the market and a very specific type of patient or consumer who's actually going in and looking for syringes and buying syringes. I think Dablicator is something that is way more approachable. It doesn't have the same kind of look. I haven't heard of anyone getting stopped with an RSO Dablicator, but I've definitely heard of someone getting stopped with an RSO syringe just because of how it looks. And I think that piece is building off of a category that did kind of exist, but taking our own real spin on it, and broadening it so much to more consumers and more patients that otherwise hadn't really thought of this direct oil application as something they were interested in.
Yeah, it's modernizing basically, what the apparatus is. And when you say syringe, I'm like, I kind of chuckle because as we all know in the industry, the stigma that's associated with cannabis, it kind of gets lumped into the gateway drug, so I mean, seeing a syringe, right? Like that's really a hard argument or hard debate because it's like you're trying to first educate someone on, hey, this is not, chemically induced. It's not like physically addicting, but heroin is, right? Like, and other things that you'd shoot up. So just kind of muddies the water in that sense. So you've really heightened and elevated the apparatus or device. I don't know what you call it, but to really make it more, like you said, approachable. It makes a lot of sense.
I think, Alex touched on that. And this category idea. So for sure, we're replacing the syringe. I mean, a lot of our partners have reached out, without us reaching out, saying, "Hey, we want to replace the syringe for all the reasons we're sort of talking about, and we think your product's cool." All right, great. We get on a call, and what they quickly realize is, wow, so this is much bigger than a syringe customer. Okay, because most of my syringes are sold to patients who want neither medicine, right? This is all of a sudden, I'd say 15, 20% of our business right now, if you will, is RSO versus I'd assert that 75 to 90% of the syringe business is RSO. So what we found is because it's approachable, because it's dosable, because it's easy to use, and frankly, because of the marketing that this guy has put together, patients are going, "Oh man, I'll use it for that. I'll use it for that." These are patients that never would have even looked at RSO, but they're looking at it for all of a sudden seeing all the reasons that you mentioned earlier around what this can be used for. So now it's, 80% of the use cases out there are with live resin and distillate and rosin and yes, RSO. But, it's really, we talked about a category. I think if you remember that whole snowshoe conversation, we created this thing, one of my many, many years ago businesses. But if you create a category and then you provide the solution to the demand you just created, it's fun. Number one,
it's the best position to be in. It seems like, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, what's the old story? I mean, there was Coke and Pepsi and nobody had a diet cola, so Tab came in and owned it, and then of course got hammered by Diet Coke and Diet Pepsi. But if you can't be number one or number two, invent a new category. And not that was the idea behind this, but that's what's kind of happened. But it is a new category. I mean, what's the one? There's one data point. I forget what it is exactly, but in West Virginia, where they can't have a certain type of,
they didn't have concentrates at one point, and they have some restrictions on edibles. And Dablicator coming in for one of our partners ended up being over 10% of their revenue in just that first 5 weeks, and they were out of stock at one point. And so I think it's seeing that new opportunity and really expanding those use cases again beyond just, oh, it's oil, I'm not an oil user. Nah.
It's actually, so that what just triggered for me is it's this really cool versatile tool for a consumer, right? Like all the things you've experienced with dabbing, twaxing, eating it, but it's also this versatile tool, if you will, for the retailer, getting around certain situations because it in and of itself is versatile. Oh, concentrates aren't available yet in your market. Okay, Dablicator is an inhalable, not really a concentrate. In fact, that West Virginia example, Dablicator for this chain was 30% of non-flower retail 30% of their non-flower revenues in the first couple of months of launch.
Wow.
So we gave them a solution, unbeknownst to us. We gave them a solution to create revenue and create customer value just because it's a versatile product. So, that's what kind of begins to create a category. It's, we talk about white space, right? What did Apple do? Not that we compare ourselves to Apple, but they're famous for creating things we didn't know we wanted, right? None of us knew we wanted,
and connecting their devices to where we don't leave it, right? Like we want to stay with the brand because everything's connected.
Yeah. So I think we stumbled upon it in some respects. And I think probably what I'm most proud of is the execution. It was a good product. It works. We got people fired up about it. And then we put our money where our mouth was. Hey, look, if you buy into this platform, we're going to make sure you're successful. Because if you're successful, we're successful. And then that flywheel just keeps happening. And that's what we've seen. Those 42 brand partners that's growing, they're all reordering. Like, this isn't just Mike and Alex are good sales guys and we got them to buy 100,000 units. And nobody's doing that anymore in cannabis anyway. They're keeping them tight, right?
That's non-existent.
So our reorders are strong. Some of our partners like Columbia Care started with 1 state and 3 stores. And now we're in 11 markets with them. Arise is Illinois and now we're in Arizona and we're going to California. So anyway, chatting on too long, but we're pretty excited about it.
No, yeah, I can see. And it is exciting. I mean, that's huge, accomplishments that you've seen in such a short time as we've talked about. And I want to ask you, so this notion of creating this category naturally, I mean, we've all heard the phrase, impersonation is the best form of flattery, right? And I'm not asking you to name any competitors that have been out there, but are you starting to see people kind of jump on the bandwagon, or is this truly exclusive currently at the moment?
I would say not yet. In fact, we've kind of taken out the syringe. When I say that, this is more expensive than a syringe. There's a couple products out there that have been out there for a while, but they frankly don't work that well. And in a lot of respects, we've had to overcome the disappointment in that product. I won't be surprised as the word gets out, the kind of growth we're having. We may see some competition. And even though it's a small, it's a new category, it's kind of a small market. But so our business model, we're just talking about it today, we're running hard. We're running hard to get ahead of the pack. In some respects, we welcome competition because all it's going to do is create more exposure for this category. It's going to force us to stay innovative. But frankly, our biggest challenge right now is getting the attention of incredibly overworked people in the leadership in the industry. And our price point's a little higher, but once they understand the revenue opportunity, who cares if it costs $1 more for hardware? They're creating $70 at retail.
Right.
Will we have some competition? I hope. That means we're doing well.
Yeah. And it only gets you better, right? I mean, you talked about it'll force you to be innovative. So I think that's a good segue. Like what, and it may be too early to ask, but I mean, have you thought about different ways to innovate and kind of really build off of this content or this product category that you've created?
I mean, so 2 ways to innovate in our world. One is obviously product design and functionality and so forth. And I'll come back to that in a second. I would say, without a doubt, the most innovation, what we're doing from an innovation perspective, and it's like daily, weekly, it's on the marketing and the sell-through side of things. Quick example, and I don't know if you saw this on our social or you could check it out online. We put the Dablicator, we put a 2022, and I say we, Alex managed the entire thing. We put a van out on the road wrapped with Dablicator, drove it across the country and back and forth over 7 months, visited over 1,000 dispensaries going in.
I think I saw it, Mike. I think I saw it. I'm not joking. I think I saw a Dablicator, whether it was online or really in person. So you're sparking a memory right there.
Well, I don't think we went into Texas.
We didn't make it into Texas, but we hit 15 states over the course of 7 months. about 1,000 dispensaries. I mean, it just was, it's an opportunity for us to educate. Again, I think for me as a marketer in this industry, it always comes back to education, because it's still, we've been in this for a while, but it's still the bottom of the first, maybe. This industry is still so young and has so many more people to reach that we knew we needed to get out on the road, and we needed to see people in person and support all of our brand partners as well. I mean, certainly it helps us sell more of our Dablicators, but really at the end of the day, like we're helping our brand partners sell by going into stores and demoing and reaching consumers and patients and talking to bud tenders about this hardware and why it's so great, leaving them with swag, sending out virtual van tour boxes to the dispensaries that we weren't able to hit. So they're still getting an experience from Dablicator, from the team, that we care and that we're there to help them sell more product and to just get this into more consumers and patients' hands.
Yeah. I mean, what brand other than, I don't know, Red Bull sends a freaking van across the country? And now, in fairness, we never could have done it because my brother drove the van, and he's a crazy hippie, and he slept in the van, and which was all part of the experience.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And people fell in love with him, and my niece went with him. I mean, it was just crazy, because that's kind of what we wanted to do. We wanted to make this thing fun. What's new in cannabis, right? Like a new strain, a new edible, a new brand. The reality is there's not much new in cannabis. It's not that exciting. It's all about, in new markets, it's about who has the, cap licenses. In certain markets, it's, oh God, there's price compression. There's this brand versus that brand. Why should I bring in a new cartridge brand when it's just going to steal, revenue from my other cartridge brand? So we just thought it was such a cool opportunity, and we could afford to do it because it was my brother.
Right.
And he's a crazy MF, and he just made friends all across the country, and it just kind of became viral. He was only supposed to be on the road for 3 months. He's like, I'm staying. What can I do? He spent like a month and a half in Florida, met tons of friends. And, so that's just one example of us just saying, well, screw it. Like, why can't we go do this?
And be scrappy. Like, now's the time to be scrappy, right? The industry is so, like you said, Alex, like we're in the first inning, right? It's still very, very new. So, and especially with price compression and the economic environment that we're currently in, I mean, hey, if you can have your brother drive the van, and if he's social and he's, fun loving, people are going to, be magnetically attracted to him in that way, then why not? Right. It's good for everyone. It's good for the brand. It's good for awareness. And so you guys did do a good job online, because I know that I've seen that. It must have been a post. But that's amazing. So what was the feedback? What was the response that you got from a lot of these retail operators?
I mean, I think the response was incredible. People were thrilled that we were there. I think we had, we'd set up some initial stuff. We put out a schedule before every single state so that consumers, people following us online, would know where the van was going to be, what time, and just rolling into every dispensary. The stores loved Patrick and Kiera. The patients loved them. The brand partners loved him. I think it was just a really good experience. And what we really found was that we learned a lot, especially about how people were using Dablicator. At the beginning of this van tour, I think I would have told you that probably 70-80% of users were going to be dabbing with Dablicator. It's in the name, frankly. And going out on the road, I'd say in the first month and a half after we cleared California, Arizona, and Colorado and Illinois, it was, there are a lot of more people eating this than I had initially realized. And there are a lot more people that are using this to twax and just add it to their flour than I'd really initially realized. I mean, that's helping drive our marketing conversations now, is really focusing beyond dabbing, but focusing on that edible use, adding recipes, providing recipes to consumers on our blog, on social, even physically in stores, so that consumers and patients again know how they can use this in more ways than just dabbing.
And one of some of the feedback we got, and sort of back to them being excited, people just were like, send your brother in, man, and they're fun, and can you get him back here? He was out here a month ago. Can you get him back for this event? And and it got so so busy and so much requests for visits, we created this whole thing called fly by, say hi. Like he couldn't go spend 3 hours at a demo. He would just roll in, high five, give people stuff, get everybody fired up. If it was at the end of the day, half of the time they went out for drinks. And, just kind of develop this real human connection. And, I think amazing things and good people attract good stuff. And it went beyond our wildest dreams. We thought we'd drive across the country, see 100 or so stores, get some good social media exposure, learn some things. Never in our wildest dreams did we realize Pat would stay out on the road for 7 freaking months and see over 1,000 dispensaries. And from a business perspective, I can tell you, again, didn't expect this, but the leadership way up the food chain, they're just like, you guys are insane. You guys are amazing. The people at the store level, at the manufacturing facilities, at the grows, we went to those as well. Man, you guys this is the kind of partnership we need. We have, Columbia Care is one of our biggest partners, and they literally are like, you guys are the best vendor we've ever worked with. We're like, what?
That's
holy
awesome.
shit. So it was awesomely educational for us sitting back in the office, and I think huge value for our partners out in the field.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, not only the positive response and the appetite for the hardware, right, but also the learnings that you experienced, because like you said, Dablicator, dabs in the name, but you learn that some if not more, most of these consumers are using it for different aspects outside of even dabbing, and that's me, right? I mean, I'm not a dabber. I'm solely flower, you know what I mean, and sometimes vape cartridges, but I just really saw, whether I was packing a bowl, like I said earlier, or if I just wanted to lace that joint, with the oil, it just enhanced the overall experience. And so that's amazing. So what are y'all focused on? I mean, I guess we're in June of 2023, right? And you just mentioned the whole US van tour and how it was a big success. I mean, is there any other marketing activations that y'all have planned, or maybe even new product rollouts or innovative ideas to enhance the current hardware?
Well, I'll speak to the hardware real quick, and the marketing campaigns and what we're doing is really Alex's area of expertise. And I'll just preempt it by saying it's all about execution and being creative, and he can talk about that. But on the hardware, we've got some innovations in the pipeline. We've got a couple patents pending. We've decided to stay really focused and execute on what is working. A lot of times in businesses, you get bored because you've been so used to it, and man, it's not new and innovative. What we're finding is we're touching 10% of the potential market. So we're really focused on our innovation being in the marketing and execution, but we do have some cool products that I can't really talk about in the pipeline. And
Nice.
As those are developed, Kevin, I'll make sure that you got some front row visibility to it.
Hey, I appreciate that. I'll be the guinea pig, man. Let me be the tester.
You got it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think from the marketing perspective, what we're really looking at is, again, focusing on the additional use cases and educating consumers, helping our brand partners educate their consumers and patients on the versatility of the product. So we've started rolling out recipes, again, putting those across social, web, in-store, physical assets as well. And then our goal there is actually to have a full cookbook as we get to the end of the year that basically compiles some of them. And I've been thinking a lot about what would be kind of a fun scavenger hunt. Like if you get all of these cards and you send a picture, post it, then you can get some special swag, or maybe you get that special cookbook.
Well, you just skipped over something that I think is probably one of the most, I don't think funnest is a word, but so check this out. Where are the cards right now? They're in they're just getting shipped, but we're in in the Move stores in Florida.
Move in Florida, New Jersey cannabis.
So imagine this, man. You roll into a store and you go up and this is not it, but you can like get a cannabis infused beet hummus recipe and take it home with you. You can get a guacamole, infused guacamole recipe, an infused granola bar. Like, who does that? Like, that's so cool. And it's so new and innovative, really just for the consumer and for the bud tenders. And the response has been, thank you guys. This is fun. This is cool. Because, you know, the industry's kind of shitty right now, and it's competitive and it's hard, and people are losing their jobs, even though everyone thinks we're making money hand over fist, which we know is not happening.
Right.
So, I mean, who makes, you know, anyway, you guys are crazy. These guys, I mean, the stuff that we're doing, it's fun and it's innovative and it's fast. And I think that's an example that you almost didn't touch on. And I just want to speak to it.
No, I want to piggyback off that, because that is really cool. It is, because, you know, if I was a consumer coming in and I knew nothing about the Dablicator, only that I could use it in different formats like we talked about, right? Whether it be a pre-roll, dabbing, eating it, what have you. But then the cooking aspect, well, I'd be like, okay, cool. Well, what do I cook with it? How do I do that, right? So you're really arming the consumer with information that helps, you know, even more so make relevance to the product and how you can use it in different aspects and whatnot. So yeah, that's a great idea.
Even think about this is, you know, think about cooking or making your own edibles. So you got to buy flour, you got to decarb the flour, then you got to make your can of butter. So you've stunk up your house or your apartment, depending on where you live in. You may have pissed off your neighbors.
Right.
Took you 2 days of your life.
Took you a little while, you know, it took you a number of hours, certainly, but you got to let it sit. Then you got to strain it. You got to have all the cheesecloth, you know, and then you can do some fancy math to try and figure out generally what your potency is going to be to try and figure out your dose. Or you can just buy one Dablicator,
right,
and just drop in your dose that you want. And all of a sudden you're making that same infused recipe. Think about how much time you're saving, how much easier that is, how much easier that makes it for people to actually enter into this category,
right,
and have that experience of making their own homemade edibles, making whatever their infused dinner is, no longer having to go through that entire process and, you know, frankly, put a lot of flour into something that you may have not even strained it out properly. Like, it's just not as great an experience. I think Dablicator is giving you that, and we're trying to tell people about that in a more direct way.
I mean, if you think about who would be down with making their own edibles, there's, you know, call that 100 people. Of those 100, how many are going to want to go through the process that Alex just described?
Not me.
So yeah, so what we've done is we're bringing 90 people into the potential market that didn't exist before. And it's, you know, that's why we're now not surprised how much of an edible or infusion device it's become, because it makes sense, but we didn't expect it. I mean, how about even these like infused dinners? You're seeing it all over the place, like these 5-course dinners from chefs, renowned chefs, and so forth.
Yep.
You know, they may be using tinctures, but this is a great product in a lot of ways too. So I think that's actually, maybe we don't think about that as much as like making your own infused products, but we're beginning to see that even more and more. And dude, that's one use case, right?
Right. Well, I'll tell you another use case is I didn't even talk about it, was coffee. I just am remembering now, there's been mornings where when I had it, I would just, you know, put a little shot in my coffee, and boy, was that nice. Right. So, and
infused coffee.
Right. And Mike, to your point, that makes a lot of sense, man. Like the chef angle, right? Because there are a lot of culinary chefs. In fact, I had one on recently. Her name was Julie Hauser from Flower Pharma. And she mentioned that, you know, she's been a celebrity plant chef for years, and she's seeing the transition from these traditional culinary chefs that are moving into cannabis and using cannabis. And it seems like a really, really great, you know, target audience for your product.
If you went on social and our social, you would, and I don't know, some of it are stories on Instagram, but some of them are actually posts. I mean, our partners are like Sozo in Michigan. They went crazy. They're showing ice cream sundaes with dripping Dablicator on top. I'm hoping you're not eating that whole sundae, because you're going to be fucked up.
You're gonna
But,
be on Mars. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or on a Ritz cracker, or so it's just a fun, cool way to, it sounds a little cheesy, but it's an innovative way to experience cannabis. And in a lot of respects, we kind of fell into these things. It's like, we thought we had an idea better than a syringe, but what's happened is this has really grown, and folks have kind of figured out different ways to use it that we hadn't even necessarily imagined.
Well, that's how some of the best products evolve, right? There's a need there, there's a want there, and then the consumer kind of takes off with it, right? Because there's so many applications and use cases for it. So, Mike, it's been really, and Alex, it's been great to talk to you today. But and even with Mike, just to see the evolution from our initial conversation, 2.5 years ago now, which God, it seems like it just flew by. It's crazy, but I want to wish y'all continued success. I look forward to, from the sidelines, watching how this product continues to evolve and grow and expand in different markets and get adopted by more MSOs and even small to medium-sized businesses. And I'd love to have you guys back on in the near future to talk about it. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that y'all maybe want to leave the audience with before we wrap up?
I don't know, man. I mean, I think you're as usual, you've done a great job of, I think, extracting from us, the level of excitement that we've got. I mean, I've been around the block a few times more than you and you guys. And I will say that, and I wasn't even a big cannabis user at the beginning of this. I just felt that the market was really interesting, fascinating. And Kevin, you and I talked about my background last time. But 7 years later, like, I'm still in this biz, and it continues to be fascinating. I think part of it for me has been, reinventing what was interesting, and because we built Jetty up to a really, really well-established company. And I was looking for something that was interesting at another level, and we've done that. So I'm excited. I don't even know where we're going with this thing, but I think it's
the moon.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you take a big squeeze of it. But I just really appreciate, your ability to sort of bring out these stories in us. So thank you very much.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I would, go follow us
Absolutely.
at the Dablicator on Instagram. Check out our website, www.dablicator.com. And, hit us up if you guys have any questions, or share with us how you're using Dablicator specifically. Are you twaxing? Are you eating? Are you dabbing? I love seeing all those posts.
Multiple use cases. Seems like there's lots, and we're still even discovering more. So really appreciate your guys' time again. And like I said, best of luck. Continue to keep kicking ass, and we'll talk to you in the near future, guys.
All right, man. You too, brother.
Thanks, Kevin.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you all for listening.
All
Bye.
Right. Amen.
Cannabinoid Connect, the nation's most diverse cannabis-related podcast.